And my computer says we are live right now, so I'm assuming we are live right now. I am Dana, the Angry Citizen, and I'm coming to you tonight from Brewer, Maine. It is Sunday evening, April 28th, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am joined tonight by an amazing guest. I'm really thrilled that he agreed to join me. His name is Daniel Mercuri. He is running for governor of the great state of California. Here he is. His website is Daniel Mercuri for California Governor, danielforcalgovernor.com. I strongly encourage you all to please go check it out. Read it. I don't know Daniel well. I literally just met him. I claim, whether justified or not, to be an excellent judge of character. I claim, justified or not, to be someone that knows truth from fiction when I hear it. I know when a man looks me in the eye and tells me he's legitimate, usually I'm pretty good at telling you when he is. So at this point, having not actually met him except very briefly just now, but reading through the information on his website, I am wildly optimistic, enthusiastically supportive, thrilled to be able to introduce him to those of you who don't know him, especially my friends in California. So for those who don't know, I actually spent a great deal of my childhood in California. Lived in Santa Barbara for a while, lived in Santa Monica, I lived in Pasadena. I used to go swimming in the coast of Santa Barbara. I love California. It wasn't my favorite place because I'm a fair-skinned guy and there was a lot of sunshine, so I got burned a lot. I love Maine, and I'm very happy here in Maine, but California is a linchpin, and for those who don't see that, you're fools. Wake up. California is critical, and it's critical that we rein in our elected servants, hold them accountable, demand transparency and accountability from all of them, and we will do that if we elect constitutional Americans to these positions that are interested in restoring transparency and accountability, and we, the people, support them. That's what we need to do. So very briefly before we start, I'm going to go over something important. That, first of all, I am a constitutional American. I'm a patriot. That means I love my country. I don't love my government. Who would? I am a father, grandfather. I'm a free, living, breathing man. I am not a Christian, but I am a man of God. I very strongly, vociferously believe in God, but I don't dislike atheists, and I have friends who are atheists. I have friends of every possible religious persuasion, so this is not about religion. When I founded the Angry Citizen, my intent was to unite constitutional Americans underneath the umbrella of our Constitution, because it guarantees our rights, all of us, our rights. And when we see rights being deprived of anyone, if I've said many, many times, his rights are mine and mine are his. If your rights are violated, then mine can be violated. We need to stand up for each other, and we need to embrace the Constitution, and we need to insist on transparency and accountability and justice from all of our elected servants. And if we all demand it, it will happen. We can put aside our differences, stop bickering, I don't want to hear Republican and Democrat. I don't want to hear rich, poor, black, white, Christian, Muslim, gay, straight, all this nonsense. Let's just forget about that, and let's unite under the banner of being constitutional Americans, and then take on all the other problems once we have established a government that is a just government, which we can do. So, and that's why Daniel is joining me today, because he is claiming, and I believe him, that he wishes to implement that and will implement it if he should be elected governor of California. So I stand on truth, fact, evidence. When I make claims, I can back them up. I don't engage in discussions in subject matter with which I'm unfamiliar. So when I'm telling you things, I claim credibility, and I ask that you give me the benefit of the doubt. And if anyone doubts me, I welcome you to prove me wrong. But that's what I say every time. If you doubt me, if you think I'm wrong about something, you need to prove me wrong, because the truth is the sword of God. So right now, today, my impression of this man is very favorable. I am absolutely thrilled to have him here with me, and I can't wait to get him in here and have a discussion with him about his history, a little bit about him personally, and his quest to be governor, and what he plans to do if he gets elected to governor, which will happen if we get behind him. So folks, especially out in California, get word out to California. If you want a constitutional governor, get behind this guy, support him, speak loudly to your friends, tell them to support him, and most of all, demand election accountability. Demand that the election be accurate and truthful. Don't accept the word of anyone telling you that it was truthful, that it was secure, that it was the most secure in history. Those are easy things to say, words, okay? Lies are the devil's tool. Keep that in mind. The truth bears scrutiny. So without further ado, I bring in my guest. Let's welcome him, Daniel Mercuri. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for inviting me, Dana. I really, it's always an honor to be able to get out there and speak to other people's audiences and, followers, and try to get the message out there about, as we already know what's going on. Truth seems to be a commodity that is becoming more and more dangerous, and I think more and more of us need to step out and not be afraid to speak it, whether we be hated or loved. Truth needs to stand, and right now it's again, like I said, it's becoming a commodity that's very dangerous.
You are correct in that. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and the evidence bears this out. For those of you that may doubt this, think of one thing and think very carefully. The media and organizations like Facebook are telling you this. Here's what they're telling you. They're telling you that you're too stupid to make up your own mind and to judge truth from fiction. Therefore, they're going to withhold this information, which they are telling you is a lie. But they're not going to tell you why it's a lie, or they're not going to give you any evidence. They're just going to say, oh, you're not allowed to hear that. And we're protecting you because you might be foolish and you might believe the lie. And if you believe the lie, you'll go out and you'll do something harmful. So we're protecting you. We're taking care of you. And they always tell you, don't listen to the other people. Well, those of us that are speaking truth, here's what we say. Here's what bonds us and unifies us. We tell you, don't believe us. Research it for yourself.
Yeah.
You'll find the same information we found that led us to the conclusion that we're trying to tell you right now is valid and true. So
no, that's actually one of the biggest things that I talk about. Whenever I'm a forum or I'm at a debate on another podcast or interview radio show, one of the biggest things is I tell people is, test the spirit of information. Don't take my word for it. Go out there and do the research, re-dig up what I dug up, and see if you can find, more information, really, as, the Bible talks about ironing, sharpening iron. That's really how we refine ourselves. That's how we know when we realize, what is an emergent truth. It's, 2 + 2 is 4. It's 4 no matter what you do, what you say, how you cut it up. That's just fact.
Amen.
It doesn't matter what your emotions want.
Yep.
And the more we can get to that core truth, the more that we start having a realization of what is. And that seems to be something, again, that we really need to be okay with when people challenge your information. I'm okay with being wrong. I really do. I don't mind if I've got the information wrong, or maybe I'm a little off. I'm okay, because I want to refine the information or the things that I'm saying as best I can. So that way I know I'm standing on strong foundation and I'm not blowing smoke. That's the last thing I want, because, well, that's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of the gaslighting. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the blatant disregard for, the things that we know to be true. And now everybody wants to live in this fantasy world and this lie. And it really eats away at me.
Amen. You're preaching to the choir, my friend. Believe me, it's been my crusade for some time that the lies and the corruption and the fraud and the waste and all of it that's going on in our government has been bad for a while. I never dreamed I would see it get to this level. So real quickly, let's get into, because when I read I first found you on Facebook. I think it was a friend who referred me over. So thank you. God bless you, whoever that friend was. Thank you for bringing me to this man here. And I read your Facebook page and it had the link to your website. So on your website, and I think, by the way, this is an excellent website. I really enjoyed reading through this, because I think it's very well put together. It's very concise. Tells just who you are. Your views are no BS. Oh, and a caveat here. I usually try to say this right up front. I try not to swear. I really try. I swear I try so hard not to swear. But I do sometimes, and I apologize. My buddy Johnny Linehan is very Christian, very proper, very, and I try not to swear around him, and I do, and I always feel really bad. Sorry, Johnny. I love you, brother. Okay, so here it is. Daniel Mercuri for governor, California governor. Starve the government, feed the people. Well said, because right now our government is a giant bloated tick sucking the blood out of we the people, and that needs to be changed. And we have all the power, folks. We can change it. There are lawful avenues for us all over the place, and I am absolutely all over that. So you'll hear more about that soon in some of my other podcasts. Meanwhile, so here comes a man who says, I'm going to run for governor, and I'm willing to say this right up front on my website. Here I am, boldly stating it to God and everyone: starve the government, feed the people. So jump in if you want to cut me off anytime.
It's
through this really fast.
Funny, as I started that back in the recall. So a lot of people don't know in California that I ran in the recall against Gavin Newsom. So I quickly threw my hat in the ring for that because I was already set up for the 2022. It just so happened that the recall took off, got the legs that it needed. And of course, it was advantageous for me to throw my hat in there. And it was just one of the things, as I was going around and I was listening to people, exactly what you said. The government is just seems inflated. Where's all the money going? There seems to be a blatant disregard for investigations and really trying to find, what's going on with the EDD. Here in California, Gavin Newsom and the unemployment office lost $30 billion and never performed any investigation. It was actually close to 40. It was a slap on the wrist. Nobody, nobody did any sort of investigation. He simply said that they were doing, the best that they could do. He wasn't going to perform an investigation, and that money that went to criminals that they did discover was not going to be confiscated or stopped or anything like that. It was just they're doing the best that they can do. Well, where did $30 billion go?
Valid question. Valid question. And the truth bears scrutiny. And if you have nothing to hide, then, just like Obama said, you have nothing to hide, then what are you afraid of? A few questions? Well, let's ask some questions. So,
and that was the hard thing. That was the hard pill for me to swallow too. Was it's one of the things that we don't understand, why government is so blatant and so emboldened. How is it that they could be doing what they're doing and getting away with it? Seems to be no accountability. Why are we allowing for this as their boss? Right? We are the people. We are their boss. We don't work for them. They work for us. But somewhere in between, we've forgotten this. And so, as I was interviewing people throughout and listening to the redress and grievances throughout my state, it really just seemed like a lot of people were saying, let's starve them. And I thought, yeah, let's starve them.
Yeah, because they're largely unnecessary. Almost all of them are unnecessary. They don't really do anything. They're just giant bloated bureaucracies that pay themselves to exist and answer phones and make press conferences. And very few of them are actually productive in any way. At some point,
we have here in California over 512 state agencies, commissions, and boards. A lot of them are duplications to already an inflated department that doesn't really need to be there. And there's really no oversight committee to a lot of these commissions and boards and state agencies that a governor can cut in half. And again, the question is, well, why aren't they? And that is because the government here in the state of California is constantly looking to siphon money from the people for whatever pet project or whatever hoard, company, Fortune 500 family is trying to seek out to try to get legislation passed that would favor them. But then that impinges upon a free market. So these commissions and boards that are out there, over 512 of them, you really can't determine where the money is going. So when you start looking into the numbers, you start trying to call the companies, you start calling these agencies, you get a lot of the roundabout. They just sit there and go in circles. They don't really give you straight answers. Nobody seems to know who's in charge of who.
Yep.
And that's done on purpose, at least here in California.
Yes. I agree. And I know that your question is partially rhetorical, maybe all rhetorical, but at the same time, it demands an answer, because this is exactly why I started Angry Citizen. They get away with it because we don't hold them accountable. It's just like if you let your teens go out and party and have fun with their friends and stay out all night and crash your car, and you never instill any kind of discipline on them or repercussions for their actions. Instead, we reward these people. We send them back. So now that's going to end, because we the people now have access to formats like this. Yes. So I have a very modest following, but the people that follow me will tell other people, they will tell other people, and we don't have to see it on TV. We don't have to worry about ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, etc., who are going to ignore people like you, and especially people like you, because you challenge this power paradigm. We, the people, now have this tool to get your message out to the people of California, who will then show up in bulk and vote for you. There was a guy, I think it was New Jersey, correct me if I'm wrong, but who won an office simply by putting up a video. That's all he did. He just created a video and put it up. He said, I'm Joe Smith. I'm running for this office, and please vote for me. And they did. They voted for him. He didn't spend any money on media, on TV ads and such.
No, you don't need to really spend a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money, and I did get drowned out, not because it was the media or anything like that. It was because it was my own party. It was the GOP. And a lot of the GOP didn't agree with what I was doing. And I was hosting my own debates. I was challenging all the other candidates to an open, fair, and free forum or debate where everybody was going to know the questions. And, I got in touch with some good radio hosts here in California. some popular radio shows, morning AM shows, and they were all happy to jump at it. And we started very early, and I held 2 of them, and it was really to try to just put everybody on an even platform. So nobody was going to get softballed, and nobody was going to get hardballed. Everybody was going to have a true understanding. In fact, all the candidates had to provide at least 3 questions that their campaign was focusing on. And all the other candidates that decided to participate was going to know what everybody submitted. So there was no hiding who asked what. And then my team was going to go out and we were going to ask as many people as we could, registered voters, what out of all these topics do you feel are the top 10? And so then those were sent back to the team as to these are the top 10 questions. These were the remaining questions. If there's enough time, we'll get to them in the order of popularity as far as what people suggested that they wanted to hear about. So nobody was going to be shotgunned at all. And one of the biggest things too was everybody can bring notes. You can bring the Constitution. You can have your little pocket note if you wanted to. You could bring the state constitution.
Nice.
Everybody was designed to bring the best answer to the table as to what their policy was going to be, what the solution that they had in mind, and let the audience and the viewers decide for themselves. Nobody had the same answer. That was the other thing. People were like, well, what if we keep hearing the same answer? No one had the same answer. And that was just a cop out and just a sort of a throwaway thought. But no, it had no ramifications whatsoever. So everybody brought their best answers. We did have this up, but then my YouTube channel got taken down. So, I hadn't put up, but I was planning on highlight as we get closer to the 2026 to show the things that I had done beforehand. I did it twice, and we had different candidates each time, some of the same, and it was about 6 to 8 people that showed up on the Republican side. We invited the Democrats and the independents, but only like 1 or 2 independents showed up. The Democrats didn't care for it, and when the GOP found out that I did that, they were relatively impressed, but they were also upset because their thinking was, no, you don't do that as a candidate. We do that as the party. Right. You don't set up those debates. We do that. And I said, what rule and what law does it say that I can't do that? And their argument was, well, if you want our support. And so they wanted to use my veteran status to help raise money. So at that time, we had Caitlyn Jenner jumping in, Doug Osee, Larry Elder, Kevin Falconer, a former mayor from, San Diego. So, and of course, a state assembly member, Kevin Kiley. And I dug up, all the red flags on them, and they were getting upset with me. I was getting called constantly by these heads of GOP, these guys who have been in since Reagan has been in office. In fact, some of these members helped get Reagan into office. So they have a lot of pull. And they were calling my campaign and my campaign manager, Justin, at the time, and of course, my co-campaign manager, Elena, who's also my treasurer. And they were sort of shotgun calling them. And they were like in a room like this on a conference call with like 5 or 7 other people sitting there telling my campaign managers that they weren't going to be my managers anymore. They were going to be my handlers. And of course, my campaign, one of my Justin at the time, he's a former Marine, was like, I don't know if you know Daniel, we're not going to handle Daniel. He's not going to listen to that. But you can try. And so we had a big powwow. Finally, I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. Let's just have a Zoom call. And I wish to God I recorded it. But I was trying to be, professional, and it was a conversation, but it turned into a screaming match.
Wow.
And it turned into a big, cuss fest. And one of the things that I realized was I'm really dealing with evil people behind the scenes. Somewhere along the line, they lost that conviction with God. And finally, one of them, I just said, listen, I said, this turned into a screaming match. You called me. I didn't call you. I didn't ask you for permission. You're asking me to ask you for permission. I'm not going to do it. And I said, what do you want? And I said, but before we do this, I said, I'm going to stop this and just say, I apologize. Forgive me for getting heated. That was not my intention. I didn't expect it to go this way. Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Who's yours? And that just lit up the room. It was F you, F that, whatever. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, do you not believe in God? And it was, the answer was, well, of course I believe in God. And I said, which God? Because there are a lot of deities in the Bible. So which God do you believe in? Because if you can't say Jesus, then the spirit of conviction is making you angry, which means there's evil in this conversation we're having. And that's when they were just, screw you and F this, you're never going to do this. We're going to stop you this and stop that. And
Wow, that's a
mother
lot of
effer.
hate. That's a lot of hate.
It
Well,
was, it went,
where
it
does
went on
hate
for,
come from?
yeah,
Dan,
it
where
went
does,
on for at least a minute and a half. I was dumbfounded as to, I didn't know how many times somebody could say F.
yep,
And so that really opened my eyes up to the vileness, because they wanted to use me, my veteran status, to raise money.
of
And
course.
they were raising money with the Democrats. And so they were help funding all of the Democrat candidates, and they were cherry picking the Republican candidates that they would get behind only. And everybody in California, unfortunately, they wait for a list to come out from the GOP as to who they're going to select or who they think the people should select. So most everybody sort of falls into this automaton phase and just looks at the list and then just goes down and votes, the way the party tells them to vote, rather than becoming their own critical
Sure.
thinker and in doing their own investigation.
You face the same challenge in California that we do in Maine. This is ironic because I recently attended an event here, which I normally do not go to fundraisers, and I normally do not attend political events. This was a political fundraiser, and I went and I paid money. That tells you something. So, but there were a lot of Maine legislators, local Maine legislators there, and some of whom I know, and some of whom I have very good relationships with and been friends with. And this was on behalf of a guy here in Maine. His name is Mike Sobolewski. He's running for Congress against our notoriously rhino Jared Golden, and I wish him all the best. And just like you, he struck me as a man of integrity. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye. I think he meant what he said. Anyway, so, and we were talking about the whole, Republican fundraising machine entity that fuels this, and the fact that it's in essence, it's putting your presence out by having all this money, as opposed to having your message heard by enough people. Because let's face it, as I recently told my very youngest son, you don't have to be qualified in any way to hold a position that is an elected position. All you have to do is convince people to vote for you. Look at Gavin Newsom.
No, this is and this is why I get. That's brilliant that you asked that question, because I get that all the time. Daniel, what are your qualifications? And I said, well, I've got to be over 18. I got to be over 25 to, be able to be in this position. I can't be a felon. I have to have lived in the state for at least 5 years, and I have to be able to vote for this office. I qualify, right? If our forefathers wanted us to have accolades, they would have put that in the Constitution, but they didn't. They wanted men and women who had the willingness and the fortitude to stand up in the face of adversity, no matter the cost. That's really all they wanted. They didn't care about anything else, because they understood that the spirit of conviction, the Holy Spirit, because they knew that even though they didn't declare Jesus as their Lord and Savior, they took from the Bible. When you look at Hamilton and Adams, when you look at Fisher and Jay, you'll see they deliberately say that they took from the Bible, because they knew it was the greatest outline as what it meant to be a free human being, and they knew that that was it. So they wrote a very fine line in there. And they understood that it was the integrity of a human being, it was the integrity of a person is what mattered to them, not their accolades, not all of their, awards or their degrees or anything like that. They wanted people who understand God, because that's written in the Declaration of Independence, right? Is the laws of nature and of nature's God, and all things harmonize with that. So they got that. They wanted people who knew that. And then they understood that if you knew that, well, then it wasn't going to be very difficult for you to ensure about, securing the rights of the people, because that's really it. When I go to these forums and these debates and I listen to other candidates, I hear them talk about, new leadership. That upsets me, because these are not your leaders. These are your servants. We need to stop screaming for new leadership, and we need to start screaming for more servantry. We don't sit here and ask for leaders, because then you're asking to be placed under the thumb of the government. And that frustrates me. And then, they sit there and they say, we got to fight for our democracy. We don't live in a democracy either. It's a constitutional republic, and it's written in the Constitution. It's clear as day. And again, I put it in my book, Lucifer Zenith, where I write about some of their quotes where they loathed a democracy. They hated a democracy because they knew that democracy meant a majority rule. And so when you say constitutional republic, well, that phrase republic sounds closer to Republican. And so a lot of people think that if they vote Democrat, that they're voting for a democracy, not realizing that it's a simple play on words. Right. And so they do this to us to keep us divided. And we get a lot of ignorant candidates that come in here who've never actually read the Constitution. Yes. And if they have, they're like, yeah, well, I read it when I was a kid.
Yes.
But you got to study it now. And
Here in Maine as well, and we have nationally and locally in all states, we have people who are constitutionally illiterate who are
yes,
in these positions, and that's unacceptable. So, not to cut you off, but I
no,
want
no,
to
no,
get
no.
back to something you said a moment ago. It's super important. People say, "What are your qualifications?" Well, if you're a person who thinks you need qualifications, and keep in mind now, there have been some very successful people that have had, horrible rates of success up until the moment they ran for office successfully and then accomplished great things. But I will accept that it's a valid question, and I'll tell you this: if you go to this man's website, it's pretty well laid out for you here what his qualifications, if you want to call them, are. And anyone can go here. It's again, daniel4calgovernor.com. And it's actually, again, I really like this website because it's well written, it's concise. I don't have to search around for things. I go to biography. Here's a lovely picture of you and your family. I love this picture. It's just absolutely awesome. Here's your biography. It talks about you. It talks about your grandparents. Talks about your history here in this country. It talks about your service, and God bless you for your service, sir. On behalf
Thank
of
you.
all grateful Americans, we appreciate you. And I am very, very much and very strongly on record as being a staunch, unwavering supporter of our veterans. I'm
Thank you.
white hot, livid angry that our VA is a rat's nest, an infested cauldron of vile evil that are just sucking the blood out of us while our veterans sleep on the street. It makes me livid. I'm so angry about that. It's huge. 13 dead Marines in Afghanistan. Well, someone needs to pay for that. So we have no higher obligation than taking care of our veterans. There is no money for another nation. There is no bonus for anyone in Congress. There's certainly no bonus for anyone at the VA, and everyone at the VA needs to be held accountable for their behavior.
Well, that's something I'm glad you brought that up because, as a veteran, I always tell people, soldiers and sailors only follow the orders of those that are appointed above them, who have to abide by the orders commanded to them by the politicians that the people vote for or not vote for a lack of a better phrase. So if you're not voting, you're not involving yourself in your community, and then you're wondering why, our men and women are being put in harm's way for a ludicrous war that we shouldn't be in. That's your fault.
Yep.
You didn't
Thank you.
participate. You're the
Thank you.
reason why they're there.
Yeah.
If you did participate, then you're going to get somebody like, whether you agree with Trump or not. One of the biggest things that I appreciated of Trump, whether I don't agree with all his stances, but one of the things is he's one of the only presidents who bartered 4 peace treaties in the Middle East and didn't send us and our troops to an endless, pointless war.
That is absolutely true.
Nothing.
That's
So
absolutely true. And I'm telling you right now, America, hear me on this. I've validated what he just said. It is absolutely true to the best of my knowledge. And if you think this is not true, you're one of these Donald Trump haters. I'm also not a Donald Trump supporter, but I stand for the truth. And what Daniel just said is true. And if you want to vilify Donald Trump, you better have a valid reason to do it. He absolutely did. So go ahead.
And that's the other thing too is and I got to find the article again. I had a copy of it, and I was going to bring it out and do my own podcast about it. But one of the things that he did is he went to the Israeli ambassador as well as the Palestinians ambassadors and representatives, and he literally sat down and he said, "Okay, roll out a map." So they rolled out a map, and he was like, "What are you fighting over?" And so the Palestinians pointed out the lands that they felt belonged to them. And it was interesting to note that they pointed out to everything that had nothing to do with the areas that the Israelis really cared about. So the Israelis were like, "Oh, we didn't know that you wanted that land. It's yours. In fact, we'll even give you a riverbank where you can help cultivate the land because it's a little more dry over there. And this will help, more green crops grow." Are we done? Because if that's all it was, then now we can stop killing each other because they really didn't know. So he's the only president that ever did that.
Yep.
And the Palestinians, rather than being like, "Oh, so you're okay with that," they said they needed to think about it. And I thought, well, what is there to think about? It's because it has nothing to do with the land. It has nothing to do with, anything like it has to do with the obliteration of a people that, the Bible says are God's chosen people, whether you agree with them or not, and the Zionists and so on. It's God's chosen people. It's God's chosen land. It's one of the things that all the Middle Easterns can't stand. And they want that nation obliterated because it goes back to the cradle. That area is known as the cradle of civilization, and they want the Israelis gone ever since Egypt, right, and Pharaoh. So it had nothing to do with the land that they wanted. It has everything to do with them basically obliterating an entire nation, whether you agree with that or not. So I was impressed with Trump, who did that, and that would have ended everything. And
yeah, it was certainly a good thing on his behalf. I definitely did approve of what he did there. I'm not a Trump supporter per se, but I do absolutely support the things he did that are worthy of support, and there were many. And so I think we should all, as Americans, support any candidate, whether we like them or not, when they do things that are worthy of their station. So here is you talking to this homeless woman. I love this story here. I suggest you read this. There's a lot of homelessness in California, unfortunately, and it's a huge. I think it's a huge shame in a nation that is so. You have guys like Jeff Bezos making $600 million purchases, a $600 million yacht, and you have people who have literally no place to live, sleeping on the streets, and that's. And I'm a big fan of capitalism, but that's got to be, something that we prioritize. So. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to try to move through these as quickly as I can.
No worries.
Your business experience and acumen, certainly good to have in terms of bringing to the table. People are fond of saying, well, the government is not a business. Well, that's actually a cop-out. The government is an entity that makes money, or rather brings in money and spends money just like any other entity, and it certainly can be governed with wise business practices. And obviously, California.
No, you're absolutely right, 100%. The government is, under Title US, I think it's Title 18. It says that it's a federal corporation. Well, that means it's a business, right? Because there's two factions of the Constitution. And I put this. I hope you don't mind. I put this in my book, The Lucifer Zenith. So I break it down a little bit more. But yes, the United States is a federal corporation. What is the point of any corporation? Profit. So they have to engage in business transactions. Business transactions cannot operate under the laws of nature and of nature's God, written in the Declaration of Independence. So they need to remove sovereignty. And they do that by way of business contracts and exploitation of the contract clause. So when you look at subsection 1515A, it says United States means federal corporation. So I'm not saying this. They're saying this because it's in their bylaws. It's in their laws. It's in their titles. So they're telling it to you, but you have to be intelligent enough to at least do the research and find it. It's there. It's in the public domain. They're not hiding it from you. You just don't know better. And so you do, and you stand confused. That's another thing where I always say, the candidates who say, well, we need to run the state like a business. That is the dumbest thing that any candidate can say, because then you are forcing a profit margin on the people to meet, even if it's irrelevant, if it's made in bad faith. Right. So when they make these contract deals behind closed doors, and then they tie it to a legislative drafting of some new law or bill, and then it gets passed, we, the people, have to make good on that contract. Because the right to a contract has to be fulfilled, right? The obligation of a contract, the states cannot intervene. So it has to be fulfilled. Well, that means the right to a contract is not limited, right? So that means they can engage in legal fraudulent concealment. They don't have to tell you the meaning and the phrases of what they draft. You have to figure it out. And then when you do, by that time, well, it's too late. Now you're stuck in a bond and you have to pay it all. So this is, when you look for a good business person who has a business background, if you think that you want them to run the state like a business, then you're asking to continue to proliferate the exact situation that we're in right now, only it's going to be perpetuated much, much longer.
A discussion in and of itself, and an entire podcast in and of itself on that one. So we're going to move right on. I loved this part here. Saw that you were a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and God bless you for that. I like to judge people in this sense, but I just can't help it. If you once you understand, once you get involved in jiu-jitsu, it's like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like falling in love with someone that you just will never ever enjoy living without. It's a passion.
It's the ultimate human chess match. It really is.
Yes. And that's exactly how I've described it to my friends, because it's like gruelingly physical. Like grappling is the single most grueling physical thing I've ever done is grappling. And it's also a mental challenge. Yes. You have to be physically strong and capable, fast, agile, flexible, but smart at the same time, knowing exactly how to move, how to counter, how to attack, and so forth. You'll love this story. I actually broke my own rib grappling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
a common that
Yeah,
does happen quite a bit. Yeah, I'm sorry to
it
hear
was
that.
quite an experience. Yeah, I didn't even know it could be done until I did, and yeah, it was fun. So anyway, so God bless you for that. And down here we have, when we speak about, this is a great quote, when we speak about unalienable rights, we are talking about rights that are God-given human rights that can never be removed, transferred, taken, or contracted away due to circumstances, i.e., the Wuhan virus, COVID-19. Yet the people foolhardily trusted big government and willingly gave up those rights. Do the sheep truly believe the technocratic rulers will give them back? I never did. I cried out against it from moment one. I have suffered the slings and arrows and abuses of all the people in my life that scorned, mocked, condemned, ridiculed me, unfriended, vilified, castigated, mercilessly, and the hatred. And you were describing this earlier in this conversation you were having. The hate, the venom, the anger,
Yeah.
which are all born of the devil. Those are all evil emotions that people feel, and there's a difference between righteous anger and the anger of, you've caught me doing something wrong and I hate you for it, and now you're going to force me to be confronted by this evil thing I've done. The Harvey Weinstein, you know, oh, I've been caught
Yeah.
anger. So
Well, when you bring that up, one of the things that again, it's helpful to know the laws, right? And I say this all the time wherever I go. It's, if you don't know your rights, you have no rights. If you don't
thank
know,
you.
there is no law.
Well
And
said.
one of the most important things was during that time frame, during the lockdowns, my wife works for the hospital and she works in a NICU unit. And of course, every hospital was telling everybody they're going to have to conform. So our frontline people were also the first people to get chastised. They were the first people to get fired and released because they felt like, well, they were the first to be exposed. We should really ensure that they go out and they show their community that, they have no problems getting the job. They have no problems, taking the shot. But the problem is that they didn't force it on you. What they did is they cornered the market. And they cornered the market through the changing of the language. They cornered the market by trying to convince you that you didn't have an option, and you did. And one of the things her job put out a notification that said, if you qualify for a religious exemption or exception, you can fill out the form. And my wife came home to me and she said, do I qualify? And I said, love, we believe heavily in Jesus. Therefore, you qualify. But she said, but it says, if you qualify, like, what are the qualifications? And I said, everybody qualifies. They want you to do exactly what you're doing. They want you to question whether or not you do, because they made it seem like it was a
Well said.
technicality, and it wasn't. It's, you do qualify. Everybody qualifies.
Yep.
It's just those who are smart enough to fill out the form. And so we filled out the form, and they only wanted you to answer 3 sentences in these little lines. And I said, no, we're going to fill out a 15-page packet. So we filled out a 15-page packet and submitted it. Well, then they came back to a second round and they said, well, we're going to have to call in your religious expert and have a board meeting with the religious expert from your institution to ensure that you really believe the way you say you are and you're truly convicted. And I said, great. I said, that's me. And I said, because in the Bible, it says of every man, God is the head, and of every woman, the man is the head. And so therefore, I am the religious leader of this home, and I am the religious leader of the institution that you believe in, because I lead the home and I follow God. It's, the church is not in charge of a man. This is of every man. God is the head. So there is no, like, I have to go to a church. That's me. And so we sent that verse in with that, and that it said, she said, my husband's going to come, and because he's my religious leader, he's going to be the one that's going to be in here. They called back and they said, no, thanks. No need for the board.
Nice.
We're not going to have that meeting. We're going to send it now to the next stage. This went on for about 4 months. And then she finally got a religious exception indefinitely. And I said, good, now sign it UCC 1207 without prejudice. And the second they take it out of your hand, they file it. It's a done deal. They can never come back to you. And it doesn't matter what comes up. You can always contest it now, and they can't fire you. So it doesn't matter if a new disease comes up or a new cold or a new, COVID, it doesn't matter. It's going to,
Right.
it's in your favor. So she was one of 2 people in the entire unit that got the religious exception. And everybody was wondering why she didn't have a little star on her badge that showed that she got it. And I thought, who wants you to walk around with a little star on your chest that you got? That's crazy. That, to identify that you've taken this new preventative measure that doesn't work.
Yep.
And everybody was just vehemently angry with her because they all took it and they didn't understand how she didn't have to.
Got
and
out of it. Yeah.
Because they didn't know the laws. They didn't understand the language. They didn't know what they could do.
So, getting back to the whole California governor thing, let's talk about if you were to get elected as the governor of California, what would be your highest priorities? What would you want to tackle first, second, third, etc.?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that nobody has paid attention to is you keep saying the word accountability. You've mentioned it a number of times, but nobody wants to define accountability. Everybody says that word, but nobody stands up there and says what that means to them. And then they speak on greater transparency. Well, what do you mean by transparency? Define that. I define accountability as imprisonment. And that means one of the first things that we have to do is everybody has violated their oath of office. Now, one of the biggest things that people don't know here in the state of California is everybody is under a de facto oath of office. I discovered this in my research, put it in my book as well. I've spoken on it in a number of occasions. In fact, I have a video on it on my Facebook where I gave a symposium about it and I broke it down. And I have a couple more events where I'm going to be doing that again in the next month. And basically the oath of office is de facto. If you are under a de facto oath of office, you're technically not in that seat and you are operating illegally. So that means all these seats are technically vacant. That includes the judges.
Okay.
It includes everybody. So one of the biggest things that an executor can do is ensure that everybody, one, is under the proper oath of office. And once you're under the proper oath as the chief executive of the state, that forces everybody now to be held accountable to imprisonment, which means now we can perform the investigations. Now we can actually get the indictments that we need. And now we can either force them to remove themselves out of office or see the inside of a prison wall. And
Okay.
legally, lawfully, constitutionally, it's not that difficult. The governor controls the militia. So one of the biggest things that I would have to do is ensure, and I already have a number of military service members that are ready to step in if I win as the new generals for the Air National Guard and National Guard, because of the fact that we have a widespread of de facto oaths. Ignorance excuses not. That is a court maxim. So there's nothing that the judges can do about it either. So this goes all the way back to Reagan. Reagan was the first one to sign the first defunct oath of office. And so I have records of those. I have all the documents. And this is something that people don't even think about. But the biggest thing that we're not tackling is everybody is going after our representatives who have purposely drafted egregious legislation that is, counterintuitive or contradictory to the supreme law of the land. You don't do that. You don't get to even draft it and then put it onto the floor and then debate on it and then pass it to operate under the color of law. That's illegal. That means you've just turned your back on your constituents. You get to step down or you get to see prison. And the minimum time frame here in California is 5 years. Yep. Well, that's what you're going to get under my administration. And everybody says, well, Daniel just wants to arrest everybody. No, I don't. I know that there are a lot of people that are ignorant. And I know a lot of people who have woken up, but they're up against a blue machine that has just overwhelmed our state, and everybody is in fear. Nobody has the gumption to pass the Rubicon and don't understand how to do it legally and lawfully. So this is one of the things that I express and that I break down for all of these patriot groups that invited me to go and speak. So one of the biggest and first most important things is stop negotiating with the egregious and with the vile that are in office. Everybody says, I want to bring people to the table. I know how to negotiate with these people. Why? Why do you want to negotiate with the serpents that are in office right now? There is no table. They've destroyed that. They've destroyed the Constitution. Yep. So no, the second I get in is the second they're going to start running, is the second they're going to step down on their own. They're going to try to come. But this is why I have the GOP telling other people not to interview me. They don't want me interviewed because I expose this. And I have lawyers now that want to be on my team. In fact, lawyers think I've gone to law school. I've never been to law school, but I have spent the last 4.5, 5 years now studying the Constitution, studying the judicial branch, studying the legislative body, all the vested authorities of the governor, I understand now greatly what it is that we're up against. And I can understand greatly now, even the people who are in office don't know nearly what I know and don't understand how I came to these conclusions. Then when I show them the evidence, prove to them the evidence, they all turn white and they realize that they're in a situation that they didn't realize they put themselves in.
Yes.
So we're in a very dangerous situation. And this is something that everybody thinks that if we just appeal to a better side, that better side doesn't exist. It's never going to exist. If it did, again, I've said this many times in interviews, if they had a better side, I don't think you and I would be talking and I wouldn't be running for governor.
We wouldn't have to worry about it. Yeah, it would take care of itself. So, and from the perspective of the angry citizen, my purpose being to unite enough people to get behind anyone that's willing to stand up and do what you're doing right now, that it has to succeed. It involves two things. Awareness is the first thing.
Yes.
So you're not on NBC, ABC, CBS. So the vast majority of the people in California don't know you exist, don't know they have an option to vote for you. If you were to make that situation happen, and everyone in California, whether they like you or not, whether they're Christian or not, whether they think you're homely or not, at least knows about you, that they have this option.
Yes,
I believe you would see a preponderance of them jump on board, because most people do want the same thing. Most people want to live in peace. We don't want our money to be taken from us by a corrupt government. We don't want our government sending money off to foreign nations with no accountability. We don't want them exceeding their authority, and we want them, if they exceed their authority and they commit crimes, we want them to be punished. And that does mean jail, because that is what happens when the people that are in these offices commit these crimes, and it needs to happen.
It's so great that you say that, because I think truly during the recall, I was already on this sort of rampage, and a lot of people thought, well, gosh, Daniel's extreme. The second time for the 2022, more people got on board because they realized it's becoming more and more pervasive. Now I have a lot of people that are starting to scream what I've been screaming about for a long time, about when are these people going to be held accountable?
Yes.
Where are the indictments? Where are the arrests? Why isn't anybody going to jail? I don't understand why there's no trials going on. Now they're screaming for it.
Yep.
And people are like, wait, wasn't there this guy, Daniel, that ran and he was all about starving the government? And so one of the biggest things that I did was I got votes from every county. There's 58 counties in California. There's a state of 40 million, 30 million can vote. 10 million are, roughly children, teenagers that can't vote just yet. So we have about 30 million, and only less than half actually come out and vote from both sides of the fence. Right. So one of the things that I did was I heavily used social media, and I used it quite well. And I didn't get to every 58 counties. I think I got to maybe 30 of those counties, but I got votes from every county, and not every candidate got that, even the popular ones. Okay. So that told me my method worked, but I did it
on the right track. Yeah.
I didn't.
I can help you out here. I'm going to hook you up with a couple people. So first of all, I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, but I've done many podcasts with my friend, brother, and ally, Ohio Brett Ball. His name is Brett Ball. He goes under the nickname Ohio Brett. You can check out ohiobrett.com. He does fundraising for people that are like you, that are working on the side of what we call good, to put it very bluntly, anyone that's opposing the tyranny. So I'm going to get you together with him.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have yet met my friend Peggy Hall from California.
I have met Peggy Hall once before. We actually spoke briefly on yeah.
Well, yeah, you definitely want to talk to her. I actually gave her a call. She's like super busy, so she's hard to get a hold of, but we've done a couple podcasts together. She's amazing. She and her husband are doing great work out there in California, and so we'll definitely get you coordinated there and get you as much publicity as we can, because we need constitutionally minded candidates in these offices, and we need people that are going to honor their oaths and stand up for what's right, and not knuckle under to the powers that be. So, God bless you for your willingness to do that, and I will absolutely assist you in any way I can.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that. Always the more the help, the better. I'm always looking for people to door knock, make phone calls, send out emails, connect me with anybody who's willing to interview me, ask the tough questions. It doesn't bother me, and I always tell people I don't have the answers for everything. I don't, but I do my best to research.
Okay, so here's me, and I'm gonna I'm going to say that I'm going to put you on the spot, but I'm really not, because this is going to be a home run, easy over the plate, grand slam home run for you. Okay. So, but I want America to know that I'm not asking this guy any questions that are carefully prepared. And we agree to they were nice and safe because he's so afraid of controversy. But I'm going to kind of put him on the spot right now. I'm going to ask him a question. Would you swear right now before God and everyone that if you are elected as the governor of California, you will abide by your oath of office? So help you God. Will you swear that to me now, Daniel Mercuri?
Yes, of course. That's not a tough one. That's very easy. As God
For
is my
you.
witness, yes, before the throne of God. No, I wish everything to be the servant of the people and to hand back the proper authority into the people's hands so that we never fall into this mess again. That is my primary reason why I'm running is to put it back into our hands and to remind these servants that they are just that, servants. They're there to be instructed by the people, to be consulted by the people. In fact, that's even in our California State Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, is that's what they're here for. Yes, and that they are required to be biased. You cannot be nonpartisan. Judges cannot be nonpartisan. It kills me when they say they're nonpartisan. You can't be, because you swear an oath to support and defend and protect the Constitution, as well as the state constitution that you're in.
Yep.
Therefore, you are required to be biased. You can't be nonpartisan and of an even or equitable playing field. It doesn't work that way. That's why you have an oath of office. So to ensure that the rights of the people, meaning the sovereigns of this nation, who are the kings and they are the queens, the princesses and the princes of the land, your job is to serve them and to secure their rights at all time indefinitely. That's how that works. You're not there to tell the king what to do. You're there to ask the king what to do. You're there to ensure that there is a reminder of a symbiosis relationship, that the king doesn't get out of line to accidentally usurp their own authority, and you're there to ensure that nobody else comes in to try to remove the authority away from the sovereigns, and to ensure all things are harmonious. That is the point of securing the rights of the people. It's that simple, and it aligns with the laws of nature and of nature's God, right? We are of an equal and separate station. We have to understand that all things comes from God, whether you like it or not. That is a emergent truth. And yes, absolutely, it is not a problem for me to swear that.
And I knew it wouldn't be. That's I was like to say that's why I asked you, but it's not. I've asked a few people this question. I ask a lot of people that question. I've asked people right to their faces, did you swear an oath? And do you mean that oath? I did a great interview with a sheriff out in Berry County, Michigan. His name is Dar Leaf. He's one of the only people that's in this nation, one of the only sheriffs in this nation that spoke out against the governor's unconstitutional behavior. He's taken a lot of heat for it. Like the guy, we did a great interview, and I asked him, did you swear an oath when you put on that uniform? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, what was the oath you swore? And he told me. So you will love this as an aside. I was thinking about this earlier. So at the event I attended, some of the Maine state legislators were there, and they were talking about a tactic whereby apparently here in Maine, I have this on very good authority, this is happening, in our legislator during their discussions, if one of our elected servants points out that something that one of the other elected servants is doing is unconstitutional, they are told that is demeaning, and they're sanctioned or castigated by the speaker. You're not allowed to say that. It's demeaning.
Yes,
that is pointing out that this person is trying to pass something that is unconstitutional. That is where we are: America, Maine, California.
Yep.
So
they actually have a clause here in state of California. Actually, most state legislators, because they mirror Congress, the federal government, they have to mirror it, right? They can't be outside of that, so they have to follow suit. And they have a clause where basically, if you're in house and you do something that supposedly goes against or could look to make the legislative body or the judicial or whatever, if they're there to be made look bad, right? Whatever it is that they're doing, and somebody out the fault, then you're the one who's going to get in trouble, and so you get ostracized, right? In fact, they remove you from committees, and so you can't get anything done for your own constituents. That's egregious. That's illegal. They don't have the authority, but they do. They write these in-house bylaws, so everybody has to sort of follow suit so they don't get in trouble. I'm not here to to make friends, right? You're there to serve your constituents.
And I think once we, the people, root them out, because most people don't know what's going on. They don't know how these things work. And, people say, I'm not political. I don't like politics, blah, blah, blah. You are. You live in America. You have a sacred obligation. Every single veteran that's been mistreated has been mistreated because you didn't pick up the phone. You didn't write a letter. You
Yep.
didn't let them know that this is unacceptable and that their, excuse my French, asses are on the line, and that they damn well better do their jobs, or they'll be facing harsh penalties and repercussions. And watch them line up. Instead, we allow them to get away with it. We reelect the same idiots back to office. They spend more money. They make bigger government. They open more agencies. They take away our rights. They tell us it's all for our own good. Shut up and do what you're told. So a few of
Yeah.
us are not happy about that and not going to
Well,
sit by
that's
that
the
happen.
crazy thing too. Everybody keeps screaming again for new leadership, as we talked about, or rather the new servantry. But the problem too that I see is we keep re-electing people who have been in office, career politicians. One of the biggest things that I spoke about previously, and I've got a couple of videos on it, is that we keep hearing about America being a racist nation, and we've got heavy racism spread out throughout our country and our states and stuff. And I tell people we don't have a racist problem in this country. We have a career politician problem, right? Who like to pour salt on old wounds, that are
Yes.
constantly keeping the people divided. That's
Yes.
what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And it keeps us at odds with each other. They're not trying to unify us and build bridges. They're trying to keep us divided, because it's easier to control 10,000 votes than it is to control 2 million votes. Right. And this is how these bodies stay in office, year after year, cycle after cycle. And then we have people who are like, yes, we need new leadership. We got to put somebody in who's better. They end up voting somebody else who's been a career politician. So everybody thinks you have to work your way up from, city council to mayor to board of supervisor, legislative body, up to, executive. No, you don't. In fact, we need to continue to limit that, so that you only serve once or twice and you're done. That's it. You don't get to come back into government on any way, shape, or form, period. Right. That's it. You want to run for president, run for president. But if you get in, you're done. Right. If you run for a certain office and you made it into that office and you serve the max terms, you're done. That's it. You don't get to couch hop all over the place, because a lot of them do that. They'll go to the assembly, then they'll bounce back to a board of supervisor in a
Yes.
very wealthy county, then they'll bounce up to go to mayor, then they'll come back
Yes.
in and they'll be a senator, state senator.
We have a lot of that in Maine. We have a lot of that in Maine. They're just career bureaucratic politicians, and you're right. There you always see them popping up here. So and so for governor, so and so for senator, so and so for representative, so and so for mayor. Yeah.
I don't vote for those people too. I don't vote for the person that's been in office time and time and time again. What did you do when you were in? And a lot of times they sit there and they just boast about how great they are.
Yes.
I never hear anything about what they've actually done for the people, and
Yes.
how it's continued to help the people, how it's put money back in their pocket, how it's gotten homeless off the street, how it's protected our borders, how it's made smaller government instead of bigger government. Because whenever we hear and we say, well, government needs to, whenever you hear, well, government needs to, then you're asking the people to pay for that. Because
Yes.
whenever government comes up with a new agency or a new, some sort of something, nonprofit organization or an organization to help out a continued issue that we just are struggling with, then you're asking the people to pay on that. Because where does government get their money from? The people.
From we
So
the
you're
people.
asking the people to pay for that.
Yep.
So whenever it's government funded, right? Government funded is people funded. It's taxpayer funded.
Thank you, because I've been beating that drum for so long. When people use dishonest phrases, who likes dishonesty? Who likes lies? The devil. Okay, so when you're lying, you're doing the devil's work. When you use that phrase, and they use it on the news all the time, government funded, federal funds, federal funding. There is no federal funding. It's taxpayer funded. It comes out of the pockets of the people, we the people. And they did not just take all our money, they print more and they borrow as much as they want. And then they do whatever they want with it. And then we send them back. So that needs to stop. And hopefully enough people finally are waking up to this and getting on board and voting in alternative candidates like you, so that we tell these big wig mainstream political organizations, we've had enough of your, excuse my French, bullshit. Okay. And your time is done. And not only are you not getting back in, you traitor. Okay, and Governor Newsom is a vile traitor. He
He is.
perjured his oath. He does
Yep.
not have any authority to order you to close your business. He has no authority to order you to stay in your home, to shelter in place. He has no authority to issue a lockdown. A lockdown is not a thing on a constitutionally Republican population. It's something you put in a military base or a prison. If there's a breach of security, you implement a lockdown. You can't just order people. She has no more authority, or he does, and our governor, same thing here in Maine, Janet Mills, no more authority to order you to do anything than I do. I could
No,
literally
because the
say to you,
government,
I order you to stay in your home, and it has exactly the same level of authority.
yeah, because that's a what we call a controlled behavior, right? So we didn't, as the people, under the Constitution, allow government to control the behavior of the people, right? We control the behavior of our government. So the Constitution is the definition to the limitation of powers, as well as the state constitution. Those are designed to control the behavior. So when you talk about mandates, regulations, policy, ordinances, things of that, those are good to follow, right? To sort of keep things in line. But those are designed to control the behavior of representatives, state agencies, commissions, and boards, not we the people. We didn't give them that authority. And a lot of people don't understand that because they feel like, well, we have to have people register their guns. We have to have people, ensure that, there's a procedure to this, right? Well, yes, there's a procedure to commerce, but commerce has a limited ability too, because technically when you get a CCW, that's illegal because the Second Amendment already provides for that. So now I've got to go back to the government. I've got to ask for permission to protect myself in public if I'm ever attacked with the right to bear arms, right? No, I don't need that permission, but yet they're telling you. So I can't shoot you in public if you attack me because I don't have a CCW. And if I do, I'm the one who's going to go to jail. But if I do have a CCW, then I can shoot and kill you because, well, you were attacking me first and now I'm acting in a defensive manner. That's okay. Well, where is that in the Constitution? It's not. In fact, even in the California state constitution, if you look at, I think it's over 33 states' constitutions, they're almost in alignment with their first amendment at the state constitution level, that you have the right to defend. That word defend is almost nationwide in state constitutions, that you have a right to defend yourself. So it harmonizes with the right to keep and bear arms of the Second Amendment. So why do I need a CCW to protect myself, right? The late, great Justice Scalia had already defined what that meant too. That meant to actually, to keep and bear. Well, bearing is a weapon of some kind, right? Arming yourself with some kind. It didn't specify, but that's kind of what we utilize it for. And any future weapon alike. So if we come up with laser guns and stuff, that still applies to that. So whatever requires you to defend yourself, it didn't say defend yourself in your home. It said you can defend yourself and your property, but you as a person can also defend the right to life. So I don't need a CCW, right? But yet we have these laws and these red flag laws, and California's not the only one that has them, that require you to say, if you want to protect yourself, then you need to go get that. And if you get that, then you can defend yourself. If you're not going to already be scrutinized and ensuring that you were within the confines of the way they think. But those are statutes that are good to follow. The statutes are designed, have to be harmonious with the supreme law of the land. And many of them are not. And they're designed to control the behavior of the people. Well, that's wrong. It's inaccurate. So as a governor, I'm going to take all those unharmonious laws and throw them out. All the governor has to do is make a public nullification and it's done. They're stricken from the book. The judges can't do anything about it. The legislative body can't do anything about it. They can even try to keep drafting certain laws and override the governor, but the governor can say, well, we're not going to enforce it. So there you go, right? So again, it's right back to, you need a chief executive who understands this and who puts the power back into the people's hands, because, well, let's face it, an armed society is a little bit of a polite society. Right? When you understand criminals are less likely to go into a conservative town when they know everyone's got a gun and everyone's going to shoot you. And even on here under California, we have the castle law, but you also have no trespassing statutes that basically tell people if they're in violation, right? That if I publicize that code of trespassing on all four corners of my land, and I tell you, if you trespass, I'm going to shoot you, right? That's what I have on my line. It says if trespassers will be shot and survivors are going to be shot again. I'm not going to sit there and have a conversation with you and wonder why you passed my threshold. I have fences around my home That means that if I have a gate in front of my driveway, that is my threshold. If it's not open, you can't pass it. If you pass it, I can shoot you. I don't need to ask any questions. You passed my threshold without my permission. You hopped my gate. I don't care why. I'm going to shoot you and I'm not going to ask questions. That's how you defend your home. When violators know this, or people who are attempting to break into a home know that they're in an area of conservatives, right? They're less likely to go in that area. This is why you look at a lot of blue cities and blue towns, and they're overran with just crime because
Yes.
everyone's afraid to protect themselves. You go in a
Yes.
red town, the sheriff isn't going to do anything. Sheriff is going to applaud the civilian for protecting themselves. The police aren't going to do anything. They're going to protect the landowner and the property owner. They're going to say, good job, way to go. We'll carry the dead body out and we'll help you clean up. Right? They're not. This is what criminals don't want. And I went into the prisons and I spoke to criminals and I asked to interview some of them, privately, so that it was just written down. And I asked them. I said, how do you go and buy your guns? No, they don't buy their guns. They ask somebody who has a clean record to go buy it for them and report it lost and stolen. Well, you can report as many guns lost and stolen as you want, and they simply sell them off. They scrap off the serial number and they sell them on the black market, or they ask someone to go to a gun show, drive it into another state, or they piece it together and they put together ghost guns. This isn't hard. It's not rocket science. And so all the laws are only designed to oppress the actual law-abiding citizen, and the criminal doesn't give a damn.
Which they do. Yeah, and we have a pretty strong gun culture here in Maine. I'm a very strong Second Amendment proponent and advocate. And the laws they don't make sense. They don't stop people from getting guns and hurting other people, but they do stop law-abiding citizens. I have a friend with a name that's a somewhat common name, and he went to a local gun store here and he tried to buy a gun, and he came up with some sort of alert on when they did the so-called background check. Well, what if your name is, let's say, Fred Jones? Well, if your name's Fred Jones, and how many Fred Joneses are there out there that might have a criminal record? And and it's ridiculous because the criminal doesn't care. He's going to go out, he's going to get a gun any way he can. And we recently in Maine, sort of recently, 6 months I think it was, had a so-called mass shooting, very horrific and tragic. And so now they're all about red flag laws, yellow flag laws, and claiming this would have stopped the guy. And they also, and I'm not like blindly supportive of law enforcement, but I am supportive of law enforcement when they deserve my support. And in this case, they tried to really make it seem like the sheriff and his deputies hadn't done their due diligence with this guy, like they should have done something or whatever. They couldn't do anything. What are they going to do? He hadn't committed any crimes. And it turns out that they weren't really even getting all the information about the guy before he, went nuts and started shooting people.
No, and I have this on my website about red flag laws, because red flag laws, and you can read it on my website under policies, they border on pre-crime. We don't arrest people for pre-crime, like the movie Minority Report. We don't arrest people for thinking about doing a crime, or they might do a crime, or somebody gets a nagging feeling that they might do something bad, or they're doing something premeditated. You can investigate them. You can ask them questions, and you can prompt your local law enforcement that somebody's acting in a ill behavior that seems criminally intent is on the rise. There's some red flags going on, but you can't arrest them, and you can't take away their ability to travel, and you can't remove their right. You can't sit there and say, well, we're going to turn a right into a privilege, because that's what a red flag law is.
Yes,
it turns rights into privileges. You're not permitted to do that. You have to work around the rights of the people. So again, do your due diligence and be a law enforcer and investigate.
I'm going to say this, and I've said this before, and I say it because I mean it, not because I'm trying to curry favor. I would simply not comment if it were not true. But we're pretty fortunate here in Maine with law enforcement, the sheriffs. I know a few of them. I've spoken to them during all of these turbulent times about various issues that have affected us here in Maine that are bothering me. And they're pretty good. Most of them are pretty good guys, and they really take their oaths seriously, and they are with we the people in our spirit and in the law and in the Constitution. So, we're in pretty good shape. I know there are other states where it's not the case. Massachusetts is not a good spot to be right now in terms of if you want your rights.
No, and it's very sad to see, because I also know a lot of law enforcement. I have family members in law enforcement, and some of them are actually just now retiring from law enforcement a little bit sooner rather than later, because they were just over it. Some of them serve in Los Angeles. And I'm not, of course, I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of them are tired of serving under Gascon, because it's catch and release. And so now a lot of them will tell each other, hey, there's a robbery in progress. And now a lot of the old school dogs that have been on the force for quite 20 years are telling everybody, don't go. There's nothing you can do. They're going to get out. You might make the arrest, and if you do, again, this person is probably going to be let out. And so you potentially might lose your life because Gascon is not actually forcing the indictments. There's always some weird excuse. And so they let this person out scot-free after they've already, shot up an entire store. Somebody got, hit with a bullet, maybe even killed somebody, and they get out. And it's maybe it's their first time offense or whatever. And so they don't even want to risk their own lives. But then I'm in a town and the local law enforcement, we, the people here, have voted to the city council to pay our law enforcement more money to show up and do their job and get rid of these riffraff and criminals. And my alarm in my home went off. So I have paid security. I have cameras all around my house, hidden cameras. That's the military in me. So, and before I could even turn off my alarm, like, it went off. And I walked over because one of my kids set it off on accident, and I turned it off. It didn't get to the time frame where it had to call the company, and then the company calls the police officers to show up. And as soon as I turned it off, I'm not joking, I already had a doorbell. My doorbell was ringing at the gate, and it was the local law enforcement. And they're like, "Sir, is everything okay? We got a phone call from your people. Can we search around the home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm the owner." But they're like, "Well, sir, we want to make sure." And I said, "No problem. Here you go." I didn't give them a hard time. They were like, "Okay, great. This is good. Just want to make sure everything is good." Like, they were there on top of it. But that's because our city told our law enforcement, "We're going to pay you more. We're going to get you more people. We're going to make sure that everything, you're up to par, your equipment, your radios, your guns, you've got the training that you require." And we see their presence everywhere. That's how it's supposed to be. So we support our local law enforcement, whereas in LA, everybody is like, "Screw it. I don't trust the police. I'm not going to help them. I'm going to do whatever I can to survive." And screw Gascon.
Yeah, we know that the cities, all over America, the big cities are very problematic, all plagued with the same problems. There's crime, there's violence, there's, no matter how many laws they pass and ordinances and against having weapons and guns and knives and what kind of knife and how long, and it just doesn't matter, that we're completely missing the mark there. So, God bless you and help you in that mission. I know that's going to be a tough one. We're running a little bit late, but I've really enjoyed the interview and love what you have to say. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you joined me. And I hope to, like I said, after this, I'll send you a couple of emails. I'll hook you up with a few people out your way that hopefully will be able to help you out. And maybe in a month or two, we can get together again and find out where you are.
No, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I'm doing right now is promoting my book. As we talked about earlier, mentioned earlier, it's called Lucifer Zenith. If you go onto my website and you go onto the merchandise page, it's right up at the top, and there's a link there where you can go straight to the Amazon. And if you go to merchandise, and the link is right there. This is a book where I was going around putting on a symposium. And I was putting on 45-minute to 2-hour symposiums. And finally, somebody said, it's a lot of information. You ever thought about kind of summing it up? And my wife came to me and she said, "Why don't you just put it in a book?" And so it's everything that I have. It's a nutshell of everything that I learned as to why is everything falling on deaf ears, how everything ties to the Bible and biblical prophecy, and what we, the people, can potentially do about the situations that are happening here in California that are also applicable to other people in other states. And what we need to be looking for as those of us who are believers in Christ, and what's coming. And I focus predominantly on the four horsemen. And it's really just information that I think will help sort of nutshell where we're at and why we're here and how we got here. Because a lot of people are struggling with how did we get into this mess in the first place? So it's almost like we need to grasp how we even got here, and how they can try to understand this. And once they understand it, they have to kind of settle and they have to sort of pray about it. Or I notice that a lot of people have to take time to digest the information.
Right.
And that's okay, because I truly believe, as you said earlier too, education, we really need to get down into the education. If we're really going to make some change, you got to become educated. And once you're done being educated, then you'll have a clear understanding as to the path that you should go down. Some people are great, focusing on their school boards, right? The indoctrination of our children. Others are heavily activists that are really trying to keep our legislative body accountable. Some people are going after our judges now and making sure that they're not engaging in misconduct or filing out reports and filling out reports against them. To make sure that they're not nonpartisan, that they are biased to the Constitution and to justice, not the law. Those two are not synonymous. A lot of people think that they are, and they're not. And so I encourage people, get educated, maybe get the book. This isn't a money thing for me. It's just get educated and start learning what you can do about it.
Well said. Now, are you familiar with Coach Dave Daubenmire?
No.
Oh, you're gonna love him. Okay, I'll get together. Pass the Salt Ministries. I'm not a Christian, but I'm hanging with a lot of Christians. How it is. So, but yeah, Coach Dave does a podcast in the mornings, and you definitely want to get together with him because I know he would love to interview you. So I'll definitely.
Thank you.
You're
Absolutely.
very welcome. So, Daniel, any parting words for the viewers?
I would just say to everybody that's out there, don't lose hope. Engage in your local community, because really the greatest power that we have against corrupt government is at the local level. And once you get the local level, you can get to the state and then finally the federal. So I really encourage people to not give up, stand your ground, get knowledgeable, because again, if you don't know the law, there is no law. Start knowing your state law, start reading your state constitution, start understanding that that is the highest authority of your state. And then start studying your constitution and the Declaration of Independence, even the Magna Carta of 1215, where it was all kind of based off of. Understand these things, and when you understand this, you will feel much more empowered. You'll understand really how to cut them off at the knees when they start trying to engage in egregious legislation and behaviors, and how to stop them when they try to control the behavior of the people by way of commerce. When you get that, you'll be able to stop them and slow them down. So I would say just get right with your community, get involved in your community on some level. Don't think that, don't be disenfranchised, because that's what they want. They don't want you to vote.
Yes.
Vote. Even if you think the system is corrupt, get involved.
Thank you. Yes.
You will really help your community out. However small or great, everybody has to play their part. So do your part, but don't sit on your hands and do nothing.
Well said. Thank you so much. God bless you. If I've said many times, if you do nothing, nothing will change. If you do something, something at least might change. If we all do something, it will change, because most of us are allied. Most of us want to live in peace with our families. Yes. We want to have a roof over our heads. We want food on the table. We want to be able to take a little vacation day here and there and go fishing with our kids, our grandkids.
Yes.
And I am exhausted from this war. We talked a little before we came on about my recent hiatus. I took a little time off because I was just getting really frustrated with a lot of my allies, with a lot of the people of this nation who are just too apathetic, complacent, and ignorant to do anything, and their stubborn reluctance to get involved, and their stubborn reluctance to hear the message. But at the end of the day, I have some really good allies, and I definitely count you among them, even though we don't know each other well. I thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time and your willingness to take on this fight. And I will absolutely be there with you and do everything I can to help you. So
thank you,
God
Dan.
bless you.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. And thank you to the audience for listening. I appreciate you all, and God bless everybody.
My pleasure, Daniel. God bless you. And we will talk soon. This is Dana the Angry Citizen saying good night. Thank you all for joining me. And I will talk to you all again tomorrow night, when I'm going to appear with my special guests, Anna and Nicole from The Flame of The Flame USA, and also my good friend Ohio Brett Ball. And we will probably talk about Daniel a little bit on there. So stay tuned for that if you're around, Daniel.